Okay, so we're talking about my fabulous creative emporium called Retrofit.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell me about your whole inspiration.
It's really funny. Everything that has seemed to led me to this point really actually did come from my love of architecture. You know, I always remember from day one wanting to be an architect. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I just knew I wanted to be an architect. Even when, like, I'd go from my, I had this girl who lived down the street. Whenever I would go over and hang out with her, she had the total Barbie, like, 3-story, like, townhouse.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, everyone always thought I wanted to play with the Barbies, but I was all about the house. I didn't care about Barbie, you know, even though, like, I'm a big mo now, but, like, didn't care about Barbie and her stupid clothes. I was like, yeah, I'm like, ooh, elevator. I'm like, it was totally all about that. Actually, someone's in the dressing room, so if you want to wait, if you don't need the dressing room, there is a mirror right down there. Take off your shirt, give us all a show. I'll get my dollar bills handy. See? That's the kind of place I run here.
Yeah.
So it really did, you know, and so then going to school and really, you know, exploring architecture, I sort of also started understanding about what I loved about architecture. Maybe it wasn't so much new architecture, but I had this love of Victorian, or this understanding of, like, renovation and rehabilitation in architecture, which then I think just sort of naturally led me to things that weren't new. Hence, you know, then this understanding of, like, vintage clothing. So, and also a lot of people say that architecture and clothing are very connected, in that it's all about structure and it's all about physics of, like, you know, how the outfit is put together. Same thing like how, you know, how a building is put together.
And time period also, right?
Exactly, you know, and so through my studying of architecture and going to RISD, there was also some of my friends were in fashion, so that I kind of saw this amazing, great thing. I'm like, ooh, fashion's really great too, because it's structural and you're creating things, and I remember specifically, like, once, like, telling my mom that I was like, oh, you know, I'd love to take a fashion class, and she told me that if I changed my major to fashion, that she would no longer pay for college.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So that was the ultimatum from the mother, that, like, I'm going to be an architect whether I like it or not. And look where I am today. Okay, Mom. You know. So, you know, when I graduated, total recession. So I'm like, oh, great, I have a degree in architecture. Can't do anything with it. Which then, of course, you can, because architecture teaches you how to be creative, which then led me to then things like display work. Like, either working at Macy's or at the Gift Center, like, you're using visual display. It's like space planning. Led me to one of my sort of, I don't know, one of my better jobs was that I ended up being the first employee at Costumes on Haight, which is on Haight Street. And I worked there for 6 years, and it was a really great experience with the actual original owner. Tremendous man. Taught me so much about like customer service and how to run a business and how you conduct yourself with your customers and what's sort of allowed and what's not allowed. Did you find something else too? Yes. Okay, so after working at Costumes on Haight, being taught a lot by the original owner, and I stress the original owner, it's very important that people understand it's not the owner now.
Okay.
That I still use nowadays. And so when on my unfortunate tenure there, you know, eroded, and I left. It was literally February. I was at the end of my money, and I was just like, okay, well, either I'm moving back to the East Coast or something's going to happen. And this is no word of a lie. It was raining all week because it's February. It's our winter. I was probably in bed 3-4 days straight with just the covers up, like depressed. I don't have a job. I have no money. My life in San Francisco is over as I know it. Well, literally, I know, like, Oprah was on. It was some horrible story about, you know, how someone's life was, you know, bad, and they were making the best of it. So, you know, it was one of those moments where it puts things in perspective. You know, it's like, oh, this poor girl in Africa who her favorite possession is her bowl. And I still have all of this. It really made things kind of like, all right, well, right, then something's bound to happen. And then probably that weekend, I walked down the street. There was the bike shop right next door. There was a clothing store there. And over the weekend, they had gone out of business and packed up and moved out. And so there was a big empty space there. And I was like, oh my God, here's my shop.
Here's your space.
Here's my space, right? Because I live right across the street. I live right there.
Wow.
And so this is my neighborhood. And so I walked over there. I was like amazed. I came into this shop, which was called Retrofit, and it was owned by two girls, Allison and Audrey. But they mainly did just clothing and more 60s clothing. Been shopping here anyway, and so I walked in here and I said, oh my God, you've got to tell me your landlord's name because I want that space. I can have my costume shop next to your clothing boutique. It'd be a great match, etc., etc. She looks at me, she leans in, and she's like, we might be doing the same thing. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, our 5-year lease is up at the end of April, and we don't know if we want to continue or, and what's going on. Boom. I was like, really? Because if that's the case, I'll buy your business and take it over and go from there. And then, took a credit card and wrote a check, and it just started to gel. I mean, the recession was really hard, but something was telling me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know it seems kind of hokey, and some people, love Oprah, hate Oprah. It's really funny because, she was saying that, you just need to listen other way. You just need to listen to what that voice inside of you is telling you to do. You need to. It's like, something is telling me to do this.
Yes.
It is it's a love of all the aspects of my life. I mean, it's everything I love. I love vintage. I love performing. I love drag. I love architecture. I mean,
what you were saying before about it's actually you.
Yeah. Well, I also, one of the things I started thinking about too is the older I get, there's this part about when you think about why you're here and what you're here for. I started thinking right, there's got to be more to it, right? It's not just me selling wigs and selling this and that. I feel like I'm here for more as well. There's other things that I need to do. I did some work with a trans youth organization, which to me really was something very interesting that I had never really had a first-hand experience with. This whole community of people that need support or need to feel comfortable going places. Really, really trying to do is make this a safe place for people to come to feel if they want to get their cross-dress on, that they're not going to be judged. They'll actually find someone who will talk to them and help them and make it a fun experience, because it should be. They need to feel comfortable and safe. And so photo shoots for a trans youth organization that they would they had an incentive program, and so if they meet so many points, then they get to come here and get a makeover. And I also am a budding photographer. I studied photography in school, so I did this series of portraits of this trans youth, and it was amazing to see them transform in front of your eyes. To see this happen for them, that they, that they act all, confident and sassy, but they're not, because that just masks a lot of insecurity. Mm-hmm. But they're also acting like that because they know that you're part of the family. But when they go out into the real world, that they're very very hidden. One of the things that I had hoped through growing with the business is to eventually open a gay or trans youth theater. My window is going to have an actual display platform, so it'll fill up the whole window, so we can actually then do shows in the window. Have burlesque dancers, have drag shows, have a quartet or whatever, jazz band or whatever. And so that's all happening soon. Again, it's all a matter of money. But,
help. You need some help.
And help. And so, I'm sort of, my vision for this place is that it's not just a costuming or vintage store, that it's a place for people to come and feel comfortable to sort of express that part of them. Whether it is wearing a funky hat or, it's amazing how many people have I can't wear that hat. It's it's just a hat. Of course you can wear that hat,
put it on.
Just put it on, Be a place that I could hire trans youth, or because I know that the trans community has a very hard time finding jobs, and so I should feel that's a way for me to give back and a way for me to feel vessel or vehicle for other things to happen. Right now it's a lot of vintage and drag and costuming and theater, and I feel it's just a place to express yourself. And right now it's me expressing me. And we do carry local designers' stuff here. There's this one girl, Alice, who sews sews things, makes skirts and capes, and we sell her stuff like crazy.
Well, anything else you want to?
What else? I don't know. I modeled on Project Runway. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. Project Runway, you did?
There was a season 5, they had a drag queen episode. And it was the 6th episode in the season, and there were 11 drag queens paraded out for the designers to choose, and I was one of the models.
Wow.
So in New York City, I'm walking down the Project runway, and so that was a great experience. A lot of, I have the dress here, that's my dress back there, that they made for me on the show, and so that's interesting. People come in a lot to talk to me about that, because, trust me, it didn't really make me rich and famous,
No,
but it helped, and it's a great story to tell when people can come in and they see the dress and they're like, oh my God, and it's interesting because, I feel like I'm very level-headed and that I don't get a big swollen head about it, because obviously it was a great experience, but like, again, it didn't get me really anything, but for some people it is a big thing. And so there's fans of the show or there's fans of TV, and they come in and they're like, oh my God, you're famous. And I'm like, I'm not, but thank you for saying that.
We're going to have a picture of that.